The crimson sands stretched endlessly beneath Commander Rachel Foster's emergency pod as it plummeted through the amber sky. Warning lights flashed across her console as the craft's remaining stabilizers fought against the planet's fierce atmospheric winds. "Come on, hold together," Rachel muttered, her fingers dancing across the controls. After 15 years of deep space exploration, she wasn't about to let a simple ion storm end her career. The pod groaned as she guided it toward a relatively flat expanse between towering crystalline formations. The landing was rough but survivable. Rachel checked her environmental readings: breathable atmosphere, though thin, and temperatures hovering just below human comfort levels. She grabbed her emergency pack and pushed open the pod's hatch, wincing at the screech of stressed metal. The landscape before her was both beautiful and alien. Massive crystal spires rose like the bones of ancient giants, casting prismatic shadows across the rust-colored ground. The twin suns overhead painted everything in shades of amber and gold. Rachel activated her wrist communicator. "Commander Foster to Stellar Horizon, do you copy?" Only static answered. The ion storm must have knocked out long-range communications. She was alone, at least for now. Or so she thought. Movement caught her eye, a flash of silver among the crystals. Rachel's hand instinctively moved to her stunner, but she kept it holstered. First contact protocol was clear: show peaceful intentions unless directly threatened. "Hello?" she called out. "I mean no harm. I'm a peaceful explorer from Earth." A figure emerged from behind one of the crystal formations. Tall and graceful, with silvery skin that seemed to shimmer in the sunlight, the alien was clearly female in form. Her large, multifaceted eyes studied Rachel with an unsettling intensity. "You are alone?" the alien asked in perfect English, her voice carrying an ethereal quality. Rachel's surprise must have shown on her face, because the alien continued, "We have studied your broadcasts for many cycles. Your language was easy to learn." "I'm Commander Rachel Foster of the Earth Exploration Fleet," Rachel said, choosing her words carefully. "My ship was caught in an ion storm. I had to make an emergency landing." "I am Naira," the alien replied. "You have arrived at a fortunate time. My people, the crystalline, are facing extinction. Our population has dropped below sustainable levels." Rachel's scientific curiosity kicked in. "What happened?" Naira's multifaceted eyes seemed to dim slightly. "A genetic mutation. It has rendered most of our population unable to reproduce. We have tried everything within our knowledge to solve this crisis. But perhaps your human science could offer new perspectives." "I'd be happy to help however I can," Rachel offered. "Though I should warn you, I'm primarily an explorer, not a geneticist." "You misunderstand," Naira said, taking a step closer. "We don't need your science. We need your genetics. Human DNA might be compatible enough to save our species." Rachel felt a chill run down her spine despite the heat. "I'm not sure I follow." "Our studies of your broadcasts suggest humans are remarkably adaptable on a genetic level," Naira explained. "A union between our species might produce viable offspring, children who could inherit the best traits of both races." "That's quite a proposal to make to someone you've just met," Rachel said carefully. Naira's expression was unreadable. "We are beyond the luxury of social protocols, Commander. Our entire civilization hangs by a thread. Would you condemn us to extinction over mere cultural differences?" Rachel's mind raced. This was far beyond anything covered in first contact protocols. She needed time to think, to understand the full situation before making any decisions that could affect two entire species. "I propose a compromise," Rachel said. "Let me learn about your people first, your culture, your science, your history. If I'm going to help you, I need to understand exactly what we're dealing with. And we need to explore all possible solutions, not just the most dramatic ones." Naira was silent for a long moment, her crystalline skin catching the light of the setting suns. Finally, she nodded. Your words hold wisdom. Come. I will show you our city, and you will understand why we are so desperate. As Rachel followed Naira across the crimson sands, she couldn't shake the feeling that she was walking into something far more complex than a simple rescue mission. The fate of an entire civilization might rest on her shoulders, but the solution had to be one that both species could live with. The twin suns began to set, casting long shadows through the crystal spires, and Rachel wondered what other surprises this alien world had in store for her. One thing was certain, this was going to be the most challenging mission of her career. As Rachel entered the crystalline city with Naira, she felt as though she had stepped into a living kaleidoscope. Massive structures of translucent crystal rose from the crimson earth, their faceted surfaces refracting the dying sunlight into countless rainbow patterns. But what struck her most was the silence, the devastating emptiness of what should have been a thriving metropolis. How many of your people remain? Rachel asked softly. 312, Naira replied, her voice carrying a weight that made the number feel even smaller. We were once millions. Now we occupy only this last city, Luminera. They passed through what appeared to be a marketplace, its crystal stalls empty save for a handful of crystalline citizens who stopped to stare at Rachel with their multifaceted eyes. Their silvery skin seemed to pulse with internal light, but Rachel noticed something troubling. Many of them appeared physically weakened, their crystalline features dulled. Your genetic condition, does it cause physical symptoms? Rachel asked, her scientific mind already working on the problem. Naira led her into a vast structure that appeared to be some kind of research facility. The mutation affects our ability to process solar energy, she explained. We are photosynthetic beings, Commander. Without proper genetic expression, we slowly lose our ability to convert light into life force. Inside the facility, Rachel was confronted with rows of stasis chambers, each containing a sleeping crystalline. Holographic displays showed their vital signs, all declining steadily. These are our youngest, Naira said, placing a hand against one of the chambers. We keep them in stasis to slow the progression of the mutation. But it is only delaying the inevitable. Rachel studied the medical data scrolling across the nearest display. The genetic complexity was staggering, far beyond anything she had encountered in her scientific training. But something about the pattern seemed familiar. This reminds me of research we did on coral populations back on Earth, Rachel mused. When they faced extinction due to environmental changes, we found that introducing genetic diversity from resistant populations could. She trailed off as she noticed Naira's intense stare. You begin to understand, Naira said. We need genetic diversity. But not just any diversity, we need genes that can adapt, evolve, survive. Human genes. But even if it were possible, Rachel argued, the ethical implications of such a union dash. Let me show you something, Naira interrupted, leading Rachel deeper into the facility. They entered a chamber that seemed older than the rest, its walls covered in ancient crystalline markings. Our ancestors foresaw this possibility, Naira explained, activating a holographic display. Ancient symbols sprang to life, showing the history of the crystalline people, and a prophecy that made Rachel's breath catch. The ancient protocol, Naira translated. It speaks of a time when our people would face extinction, and of visitors from the stars who would help us evolve into something new. Not through conquest or submission, but through willing partnership. Rachel studied the holographic images with growing fascination. The ancient crystalline had indeed predicted contact with humanoid species, but the protocol was far more nuanced than simple genetic mixing. There's more here, Rachel said, pointing to a complex series of symbols. These patterns, they're not just about biology. They're about cultural exchange, mutual understanding, a true merging of civilizations. Naira's eyes seemed to brighten. You can read our ancient script? Not exactly, Rachel admitted. But scientific patterns are universal. This isn't just about saving your species through reproduction, it's about creating something entirely new. A bridge between our peoples. As if to emphasize her words, the facility's lights suddenly dimmed. Through the crystal walls, Rachel could see the twin suns had set completely, leaving only starlight to illuminate the city. The night cycle begins, Naira explained. Our weakest time. Many do not survive the darkness anymore. Rachel watched as the remaining crystalline in the facility began to dim, their internal light fading like dying stars. The sight stirred something deep within her, not just sympathy, but determination. I want to help your people, she said firmly. But we need to explore all possibilities, not just the most immediate solution. The ancient protocol speaks of a deeper connection, perhaps that's what we should focus on first. Naira was quiet for a long moment, her own light pulsing thoughtfully. You suggest we follow the complete protocol? Not just its biological aspects? Yes, Rachel said. Let me learn your ways, your science, your culture. Let me understand how your people harnessed solar energy. Maybe together we can find a solution that honors both our species. As if in response to her words, one of the ancient crystals in the chamber began to glow with a soft blue light. Both Rachel and Naira stared at it in surprise. That hasn't happened in generations, Naira whispered. The resonance crystal only activates in the presence of harmony between species. Rachel stepped closer to the glowing crystal, feeling a subtle vibration emanating from it. Then maybe we're on the right track. Tell me everything about your people, Naira. Not just your crisis, but your hopes, your dreams, your beliefs. Let's find a solution worthy of both our civilizations. As the crystal's light bathed them in its gentle glow, Rachel couldn't help but feel that she was standing at the threshold of something momentous. The fate of the crystalline people hung in the balance, but so did the possibility of an unprecedented partnership between their species. The night grew deeper, but in that ancient chamber, hope began to shine like a newborn star. The following days blurred together in a whirlwind of discovery and revelation. Rachel immersed herself in crystalline culture, spending countless hours in their vast archives while helping Naira search for alternative solutions to their genetic crisis. Your people's understanding of light energy is incredible, Rachel said one morning, studying a complex diagram of crystalline cellular structure. You don't just absorb solar radiation, you transform it into something entirely new. Naira nodded, her silvery skin catching the early sunlight streaming through the crystal walls. It is our greatest gift, and now our greatest weakness. Without proper genetic expression, the transformation becomes toxic. Rachel had noticed the pattern. During daylight hours, the crystalline people seemed to rally, their bodies glowing with stored energy. But each night, they grew weaker. Those most affected by the mutation could barely maintain their luminescence through the darkness. What if we could modify the process? Rachel suggested, pulling up her own research notes. Earth scientists have made breakthroughs in photosynthetic enhancement. If we could combine that knowledge with your technology. A commotion outside interrupted their discussion. Through the translucent walls, they could see a group of crystalline gathered in the central plaza, their lights pulsing with agitation. What's happening? Rachel asked, following Naira as she hurried outside. Another one has fallen, Naira explained grimly. Valen, one of our eldest. He didn't survive the night. The crowd parted as they approached. In the center lay a crystalline elder, his once bright form now dull and lifeless. Around him, his people began a haunting harmonic song that made the very crystals of the city resonate in mourning. Rachel watched the ceremony with a heavy heart, understanding more than ever the urgency of their mission. But something about the harmonic resonance caught her attention. Naira, she said suddenly, the way your people can create these harmonics, it's not just cultural, is it? It's connected to your ability to transform energy. Naira's eyes widened. Yes, but how did you? Rachel was already pulling up data on her portable computer. Look at these wavelength patterns. When your people sing, you're not just making sound, you're creating specific energy frequencies. What if that's part of the key we've been missing? They rushed back to the research facility, where Rachel began correlating data between crystalline harmonics and their cellular energy transformation process. Hours turned into days as they explored this new avenue, combining earth science with crystalline wisdom. The mutation isn't just affecting your ability to process solar energy, Rachel explained, pointing to her findings. It's disrupting the harmonic resonance between your cells. But if we could stabilize that resonance? Using what? Naira asked, her voice tinged with both hope and skepticism. Rachel smiled. Using something humans excel at, adaptation. Our cells might not process light like yours do, but we're incredibly good at maintaining cellular stability under varying conditions. If we could isolate that trait. Their breakthrough came during one of the singing ceremonies. Rachel noticed that when certain harmonics were reached, the weakened crystalline seemed to briefly stabilize, their lights glowing stronger. It's like a backup system, she realized. When your primary energy conversion fails, the harmonic resonance can temporarily compensate. We don't need to completely rebuild your genetic structure, we just need to strengthen this secondary pathway. The solution began to take shape, a combination of modified human genetic material that could enhance the crystalline's harmonic energy conversion, without requiring direct reproduction between species. It was elegant, ethical, and honored both cultures' strengths. But as they prepared to test their theory, nature had other plans. The twin suns began to dim unusually early, and an ominous rumbling shook the crystal spires. Something's wrong, Naira said, her light flickering with concern. The solar storms, they're beginning early this cycle. Rachel looked up at the darkening sky, where massive waves of energy were beginning to ripple across the upper atmosphere. They had found their solution, but now they were racing against time to implement it before the storms cut off the solar energy their remedy depended on. The true test of their partnership was about to begin, and they would need every bit of human ingenuity and crystalline wisdom to survive what was coming. The solar storms intensified with frightening speed, sending waves of disruptive energy cascading through Luminara's crystal spires. Rachel and Naira worked frantically in the research facility, racing to stabilize their genetic solution before the storms reached full strength. The harmonics chamber is ready, Naira announced, her light pulsing erratically in the growing darkness. But we'll need more power to complete the genetic transfer process. Rachel studied the readouts on her portable computer, mind racing. The storms are actually generating massive amounts of energy, just not in a form your people can safely absorb. But maybe. She pulled up schematics of the city's crystal structure. These spires aren't just buildings, are they? They're natural energy conductors. Yes, but the storm energy is too chaotic, Naira explained. It would shatter them. Not if we modify the resonance frequency. Rachel began rapidly adjusting calculations. We can use the entire city as one massive harmonic converter. The crystals will channel and stabilize the storm energy, making it usable for the transfer process. Outside, the sky had turned an angry purple-black, shot through with veins of electrical energy. The weakened crystalline were being moved into protected chambers, their lights flickering dangerously dim. We'll need to position resonance amplifiers at key points throughout the city, Rachel continued, marking locations on the holographic map. The modified human genetic material will be carried through the harmonic wave, strengthening your people's ability to process multiple forms of energy. Naira studied the plan, her multifaceted eyes reflecting the storm light. It could work, but someone would need to remain at each amplifier point to maintain the precise frequency. In these conditions. I'll do it, Rachel said firmly. My environmental suit can protect me from the worst of the storm. Your people need to focus on maintaining their energy levels. Naira's light pulsed with concern. The risk is too great. You could be killed. Your entire civilization is at stake, Rachel countered. Besides, this is what humans do best, adapt and overcome. They put the plan into action as the storm bore down on them. Rachel raced from point to point across the city, setting up and calibrating the resonance amplifiers. The crystal spires groaned under the assault of the solar storm, but held firm. In the central research facility, Naira began the delicate process of preparing the genetic transfer solution. The remaining crystalline gathered in protected chambers, their combined harmonics creating a baseline frequency that would carry the modified genes through their population. Rachel reached the final amplifier point just as the storm reached its peak. Wind howled through the crystal canyons of the city, carrying particles of charged energy that made her hair stand on end even inside her suit. "All amplifiers are in position," she shouted into her comm unit. "Ready to initiate on your mark." In the research facility, Naira's hands flew over the crystal controls. Transfer solution prepared. Beginning harmonic convergence in 3, 2, 1. The city's crystals began to sing. There was no other way to describe it. As the storm energy was captured and channeled through the crystal network, it created a symphony of light and sound unlike anything Rachel had ever experienced. The resonance amplifiers added their voices to the chorus, building to a crescendo that made every molecule in her body vibrate in harmony. Through her suit sensors, Rachel watched in amazement as the modified genetic material was carried on the harmonic wave, spreading through the crystalline population. One by one, their lights began to stabilize and strengthen, taking on a subtle iridescent quality that seemed to bridge the gap between human and crystalline biology. But the storm wasn't finished with them yet. A massive surge of energy struck the city's outer crystals, threatening to overwhelm the harmonic network. Rachel saw the feedback wave coming too late. "Naira. The amplitude is dash." The amplifier in front of her exploded in a shower of crystal shards. Rachel was thrown backward, her suit's emergency systems screaming warnings. Through blurring vision, she saw other amplifiers beginning to overload. The entire harmonic network was about to collapse, and with it, their one chance to save the crystalline people. Through the haze of pain and warning alarms, Rachel forced herself to focus. She hadn't come this far to fail now. The harmonic network was destabilizing, but perhaps that was the answer: controlled instability. "Naira," she called through the crackling comm, "the amplifiers, we need to let them fail in sequence. Create a cascading resonance." "That would create a feedback loop," Naira responded, her voice tense. "The energy would dash." "Trust me." Rachel interrupted, dragging herself to her feet. "Humans learned long ago, sometimes you have to bend to avoid breaking." After a moment's hesitation, Naira's voice came back. "I trust you, Rachel." Beginning sequential shutdown. One by one, the amplifiers began to overload and shut down. But instead of destroying the harmonic network, the cascading failures created a new pattern of resonance. The storm energy, rather than shattering the crystal spires, now flowed through them like water finding new channels. Rachel watched in awe as the city's crystals began to pulse with a new rhythm, neither purely crystalline nor human, but something entirely unique. The modified genetic material, carried on this hybrid resonance, spread through the population faster than they had dared hope. In the protected chambers, the crystalline people began to change. Their silvery skin took on subtle hues that shifted with their emotions, while their internal light grew stronger and more stable. Even those most affected by the mutation showed signs of recovery. The storm raged on, but now its energy was being absorbed and transformed by the newly resilient crystalline. Their combined harmonics rose to meet the chaos, turning destruction into renewal. When the last storm front finally passed, the twin suns rose on a changed world. Rachel, battered but alive, made her way back to the research facility where Naira waited. The genetic transfer was successful, Naira announced, her own form glowing with a new vitality. Early results show complete stabilization of the mutation. We can process multiple forms of energy now, not just solar radiation. We are evolved. Rachel smiled, removing her damaged helmet. Not just evolved, adapted. Like your ancestors predicted, our peoples have built a bridge together. This is just the beginning. In the days that followed, as Rachel's rescue ship approached, the implications of their achievement became clear. The crystalline were no longer facing extinction, they had entered a new phase of their existence. Their ability to process and transform energy had been enhanced by human adaptability, while maintaining their unique cultural identity. The ancient protocol was right, Naira said as they stood watching the newly strengthened crystalline teaching their children the old harmonics with their new voices. But it wasn't just about survival. It was about growth, about proving that different species could achieve more together than alone. Rachel nodded, touching the small crystal that Naira had given her, a piece of Luminara that would always connect her to this place. That's the real bridge we built, not just between biology, but between cultures. Between worlds. Her rescue ship would arrive soon, but Rachel knew this wouldn't be her last visit to Luminara. The partnership between humans and crystalline was just beginning. There would be more challenges, more discoveries, more opportunities to prove that the greatest strength lay not in isolation, but in harmony. As the twin suns climbed higher, their light caught the crystal spires and scattered in new patterns, patterns that spoke of hope, of change, and of a future brighter than either species could have imagined alone. You know, Rachel said with a smile, I think this is what we were both really looking for, not just a solution to a crisis, but a way to grow beyond our limitations. To become something more. Naira's light pulsed in agreement. And we did it not through force or desperation, but through trust and understanding. That is a lesson both our peoples will carry forward into the stars. The Crystal City sang with new harmonics, its song carrying across the crimson desert, a melody of two species who had faced extinction and instead found transformation, a testament to the power of building bridges across the vast distances between worlds. It was more than just a rescue mission now. It was the beginning of a new chapter in the story of both species, a chapter they would write together, in the language of light and harmony that they had created between them. The end.